Good evening, everybody. Just as you can see, we were not prepared for the number of people that will be coming tonight. So we are overwhelmed by the response to this evening. We had some suspicions, but this has exceeded what we expected to get for a turnout. So we're very excited about tonight. This is a very exciting evening for the educators in the Wakefield Public Schools. My name is Steve Zreich. I'm the superintendent of schools here, and I'm joined by a number of very talented educators and members of our school committee. I do want to start by just introducing the members of the school committee that are here tonight and have been big supporters of this work around full-day kindergarten. I see Janine Cook in the corner here. We have Kate Morgan in the audience. We have Greg Liakos as well. And we have Chris Callahan, the chair of the school committee, in the back. Am I missing anybody? I think I've got everybody from the school committee who's here tonight. And then we have so many educators from the schools here that I'm not going to name everyone, but I'm going to ask them to wave or stand up. First, administrators, if you could stand up, our principals and administrators, please stand up. So we have more than just one here. You can wave. They're all standing here. Yeah, you can wave. And then and most importantly, we have many kindergarten teachers here, and first grade teachers and second grade teachers. So I'd ask that you wave. They're mostly standing over here. And ultimately, you really want to hear from them. You don't want to hear from me. It's been a long time since I was a teacher, and so I always believed that there was always a special place in the afterlife for kindergarten teachers. So they're very special people. So tonight we have a full presentation for you. And then instead of, this is such a big group that we didn't want to have a big question and answer period. We wanted to break out into smaller groups where you could get your questions answered by people who know what's going on in the schools, by our teachers and administrators. So we have 7 breakout rooms, which we've assigned you on top of your agenda. You have a room number. And strategically, we probably separated some partners here, some spouses. So it's okay if you're separated. We want people from all different schools and different households in our different breakouts. But in each breakout, we'll have a teacher, and in many of them, there's an administrator as well, who can answer a lot of your questions. And if there's ones that they can't answer, we're going to be recording that and getting your feedback on what you hear tonight. So out of curiosity, the first question I would have is, how many of you in this room have a child that is going to kindergarten next year? Well, okay. How many of you have children that are going to kindergarten in the next 2 years? Well, I'm sorry, that you're here because you have a child that will be going in 2 years. Okay. How about if you're here because you have a child going in 3 years? Some of you may fall in multiple categories. Well, I happen to myself, I'm a little biased for those. I have to be candid. I have a child that's going to kindergarten next year. And unfortunately, I live in a district, and I'm not going to name it because I'm disappointed. They are not talking about full-day tuition-free kindergarten, but I will reserve that for another time. And then I have another child who will be going in 3 years to kindergarten. So for many of you, I'm very much in the same boat, thinking about schooling for my own children. But tonight, what we hope to do is just give you a sense of the rationale, really, to give you a background of what we've been talking about. I want to be absolutely clear. Tonight's session is not to tell you that it's happening for sure. Okay? I don't have a crystal ball. I'm not here to tell you. I don't want people to leave and say, oh yeah, I don't need to worry about this. It's all set. Okay? That is not the message we're sending tonight. The purpose tonight is really to give you background on our thinking and why we really do believe that this needs to happen. I will share with you some things that I think the timeline, and I will give you some insight as to what we think parents can do to help advocate for this if this is in fact something you want to see. But I think it's important as educators that we share with you why we believe that in 2014, almost 15, this is important for the children of Wakefield. So we're going to start with a little background, and then we're going to talk about the rationale for expansion. And I have a series of, Dr. Smith, the assistant superintendent, is going to present with me along with Ms. Cariello, who's the director of the Doyle School, and Ann Menino, who has done a lot of work with early childhood, who's one of our SPED coordinators. We're going to share with you 4 different categories around the rationale: social emotional development, equity, curriculum changes, and then finally academic performance. There's 4 reasons why we believe that this is an important step. And then most importantly, after that, I just put the bullet in here, it's on your agenda, we have some kindergarten teachers that are going to share their impressions. And I really would say that out of anything you hear, listen to what they have to say. Because I brought my presentation to them on Monday, and I changed my whole presentation based on feedback I received from kindergarten teachers. So they're the ones who are in the trenches every day, and many of them have taught half day and full day. So they have a really good perspective of this. And then give you a sense of estimated program costs. Mike Pifferling, our business manager, is here. He's going to talk about what the cost implications are. And then finally, we'll talk about what some of the next steps are moving forward. So just to give you a snapshot of 2014 and 15 in Wakefield, we have 55 students in half-day. We have 5 sections of half-day kindergarten. 1 each at the Doyle, Woodville, Greenwood. At the Doyle, Woodville, and Greenwood, those are AM session only. So as you can see, 55 students in half-day. Full day, we have 143 students at 9 sections. 1 full-day section at the Doyle, 3 at the Woodville, 2 at the Greenwood, and 3 at the Dolbear. This year, as you know, we kept students as close as we could to their home schools. And in the case of Walton does not have space to keep their kindergartens, so their kindergarten classes are housed at the Doyle right now. And as you can see, the majority of our families are opting for full-day programming. Just to give you a sense of the revenue, and this is important as we talk about what the cost implications will be. For any half-day students, that's a free program. We don't generate any revenue. For full day, we charge $4,000 currently, and there's a 10% discount if you pay before September 1st. We reinstituted that this year. So a lot of people were angry that didn't get that discount the year before, but the school committee voted for this year to institute the 10% discount. Students who qualify for IEPs, we don't charge them, and we have a few students on waivers. Not 100% waivers, but there's a sliding scale depending on your socioeconomic status. And so with all of that included, we generate, or this year we will generate, if all goes right, $543,928 from revenue kindergarten. So the proposal is that we move forward with a tuition-free full-day kindergarten for all students starting with the 2015-16 school year. Many people ask, will there be a half-day option? Right now, we are moving forward with full day for all students, and that we would not provide a half-day option. Now again, this is merely a proposal, as you can see. Merely a proposal at this point, okay? But I just want to be transparent with the public, is that our discussions and our thinking has been around tuition-free for all students, given what we think is important for all students to have to be prepared for what we see as 21st century learning, and to be competitive not only within this state but across this country and really the world. Okay, so I'm actually going to skip this one because this is 2012. But 2013-14, this is a map, and it's very hard to see. But essentially, this is a map of the state, obviously the state, and the communities in color do not offer tuition-free kindergarten. Okay? Almost all of them offer a full-day option, except there's only 10 communities in the Commonwealth. This is last year, 2013-14. But essentially, you can see there's like 262 communities right now. This number's higher because this is 2013-14. We do know there are some that have added it in the current school year. But 75% of the communities around us offer tuition-free full-day kindergarten. Pretty startling number. Okay, and again, that's higher this year, and so we fall in the 25% that do not offer that. And you can see neighboring communities that offer tuition-free full-day kindergarten. There you see a list of them. You may know some that are not on this list. I know that for communities like Reading, the reason they can't offer it is they don't have the space for it. They're ready to do it. They have the financial wherewithal, but they do not have the space, which is something that with the opening of the Doyle we do have in Wakefield. So we're lucky in that regard, is that we don't have a space issue. This is just an enrollment comparison, Wakefield, as compared to the state of Massachusetts. So we have 72% of our students that are enrolled in full day, whereas across the state, it's pretty startling. 88% of students are in full day kindergarten now, whereas 10 years ago that number would have been cut in half. And then we have obviously a small number that are in half-day kindergarten in the half-day kindergarten program. So at this point, I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Perriello, the Director, Principal of the Doyle Early Learning Center.
Good evening. So I want to talk a little bit about the social emotional development and the impact of a full-day classroom. NIAC, which is the National Association for the Education of Young Children, proposes that a strong foundation for learning in the early years in a safe and caring environment that promotes not only the cognitive and academic development, but also physical, social, and emotional development is critical for our youngest students. So if we're really talking about educating the whole child, the social and emotional development is a big piece of this. The NEA claims that full-day kindergarten provides our youngest students more time to explore, learn, and grow in an engaging and supportive environment, and provides many social and emotional benefits to kindergarten students. They have more time to focus and reflect on activities and more time to transition between activities. Time on task and academically engaged activities is essential to meeting academic goals. However, additional class time could be a key element in meeting students' social and emotional goals. So we talk a lot about the academic piece, but never the social and emotional. Research proves that a child's social emotional development is positively affected and enhanced by transition to a full-day kindergarten program. So some of the benefits and impact on social emotional development include a dedicated time for social engagement, lunch, and recess. Lunchtime allows for social interaction and development of appropriate behaviors. Expanded opportunities for structured, purposeful play. Expanded character education program. Right now we use a program called Alveus. Extended time in a structured environment to develop stronger social and emotional skills, which help to develop those self-regulation skills that make it possible for children to conform to classroom rules and to benefit from learning in various social contexts. So time for purposeful play that's congruent with the needs of 5-year-old students, and time for explicit instruction and modeling of those appropriate social skills.
So, just as Mrs. Farrell was talking about, in terms of equity, for the half-day kindergarten, as you can see from this slide, they certainly have the same time on learning and the same opportunity to have some snack and some recess time. But if you look at the rest of the slide, and you're able to see that there is that opportunity for the enrichment and the play and that social emotional development within that full-day time. So that really is a piece in terms of the equity of the day. Within that full day in class, you're able to have that opportunity for that social emotional development and that purposeful play and the opportunity to learn some of those conflict resolution strategies and that type of thing that really isn't available in that half day time because it is such a short time. The other thing that's really available in that half day time, we've been able in our half day to work in some of the specialist time. And the teachers have been very creative with the specialists to do some time is in push in within their classroom and bring some of those specialists and their strategies into their classrooms. But in the full day classroom, they are able to take that time and take the children out of their classrooms and go to each individual specialist, such as art and music, technology, gym, and really have that full experience of the specialist. So there is that true opportunity to experience some of those things and get ready for some of those next steps in first and second grade. So there is that opportunity for the equity within that full day class. So that's one of the opportunities that we really are looking for our kindergartners to have. The other piece that we've really seen grow over the course of time as the split has grown with the number of children in half day versus full day is we've seen that the number of children from who are lower income, they tend to be in our half-day classes and not in our full-day classes, so they really aren't given the opportunity to experience the full day. And that's something that we really find troubling. So we'd really like to, with the full day, free full day, then they really have the opportunity to have the same education as the children in the half day. But we also recognize that $4,000 is not a small amount of money for anyone. So it really is a financial burden for all of our families. So in making it a free full-day kindergarten, we're able to take away that financial burden from all of our families. I know in talking to a lot of you on the phone as some of you prepared for your first children to go to kindergarten, we talked about the fact that $4,000 was not a small amount of money. So, in taking away that burden, we're able to give that opportunity to so many more families. And we're also able to put all of our students give all of our students the same advantages.
Thank you very much, Anne. So I'm Kim Smith. I'm the Assistant Superintendent of Schools, and I'm going to talk a little bit about curriculum and academic achievement. Both are reasons that I'm quite passionate about full-day kindergarten, in addition to the equity and social emotional issues. So first, looking at curriculum, the number of standards in English language arts for pre-K and K has more than doubled since 2001, as you can see from this graphic here. And perhaps even more importantly, the expectations have really shifted for children from exposure to mastery. So if you take a look at this slide, in the Mass Curriculum Frameworks in 2001, it really just states that we have to continue to address standards over time, kind of go back and catch the standards as students are kind of learning and catching up. But as you look at the standards from 2011, students are expected to master skills at each grade level, and that's really important as they're moving forward. So mastery as opposed to simply just exposure. So here's an example of what that might look like. So this is the standard for Conventions of Standard English. And in 2001, the framework simply read, print upper and lowercase letters of the alphabet. And you can see how in the new standards that were implemented beginning in 2001, there's a lot more to it. So in addition to that, students are really being asked to demonstrate command of the conventions of English grammar and usage, including things like printing many upper and lowercase letters, using frequently occurring nouns and verbs, using plural nouns orally, by adding the endings, understanding and using question words, using the most frequently occurring prepositions, and producing and expanding complete sentences in shared language activities. So you can see there's really a lot more being asked of children, and we're asking them to master that before they move on to first grade. So the new standards are built as a continuum. And basically, we're looking at career and college readiness and working our way all the way back down to pre-K. So there's a continuum of standards that go from pre-K all the way through grade 12 to ensure that students are building the skills that they need for career and college readiness. So on this slide, we have an example of a writing standard and what that might look like. So here's the pre-kindergarten standard and how it moves to kindergarten. So just look at the way that it evolves. In pre-K, students are asked to use a combination of dictating and drawing to explain information about a topic. Moving to kindergarten, you can notice that they really expected to have already mastered that, and we add to it by students being expected to use a combination of dictating, drawing, and writing to compose informational or explanatory texts in which they name what they're writing about and supply some information about the topic. So you can see how the kindergarten standard builds on the pre-K standard. And then moving forward to grade 1, you can see again it continues to evolve, where students are expected to be able to write informational or explanatory texts in which they name a topic, supply some facts about the topic, and provide some sense of closure. So you can see, and if you continue to follow it all the way up through the grade levels, as students achieve mastery at each level, they keep building on it. So the standards are really a continuum which are important for them to achieve. And this is a look at math. And although it's not quite as dramatic, you can see that there is an increase in standards in math as well. And this is just kind of an overview glance of what that continuum that I just explained to you in English language arts looks like in mathematics. So the shaded areas show you how in each domain there's mastery at each level, and the students keep building on that mastery all the way through. And this shows you grades K through 8 and some of the domains that they're looking at. And the expectations, again, really increase. So if you look at the earlier standards under this domain of counting and cardinality, and then compare them to the 2011 standards, you can really see that a lot more is being asked of children. And I can see probably a little bit of fear on some faces. Is my child going to be able to do this? And the answer is yes. Yes, they can. Yes, they can do it. And that is really the thing that's actually kind of exciting about it, is that they can master these standards. So if you look at, for example, what they were asked to do before, they were asked to count by ones to at least 20, and then count by fives and tens to at least up to 50. Also match quantities up to at least 10 with numerals and words. So now look across to the new standards. Now students are being asked to count to 100 by ones and tens, write numbers from 0 to 20, and be able to represent those numbers with objects and written numerals. They're asked to be able to count forward beginning from a given number with a known sequence, other than just always starting with 1. Starting from any number, can we continue to count forward? This is just another domain, just to, again, kind of get a little bit of a sense. But again, in the older standards, we ask students to use objects and drawings to model and solve related addition and subtraction problems to 10. So this is under the domains of operations and algebraic thinking, and that's about understanding addition as putting together and adding to, and subtraction as taking apart and taking from. So students were asked to be able to draw and model that. Now what they're being able to ask to do in the new standards is decompose numbers less than or equal to 10 into pairs in more than one way. So for example, if you look at the bottom, 5 equals 2 plus 3, and 5 equals 4 plus 1. Looking at the next example, from any number from 1 to 9, find a number that makes 10 when added to the given number by using objects or drawings, and record the answer with a drawing or an equation. So you can see a lot more is being asked of the students. So really, in looking at the summary of what those curriculum changes look like, it's really about two things. It's about increased rigor, which I think is pretty clear by looking at some of those examples. And again, the mastery at each grade level. And kindergarten becomes an integral piece of that pre-K through 12 learning continuum. So next, we took a look at some data in comparing the academic performance of half-day kindergarten students to full-day kindergarten students. So I want to be very clear about something. We don't want anyone to think here that if you've enrolled your child in the past in a half-day program or currently in a half-day program, that somehow you've done a disservice to your child. That is not the case. But what we are doing is saying that moving forward, we think there are some really compelling reasons for all children to be in full day. Okay, so I wanted to really make that clear. But if you take a look at this was data, this is like a short-term snapshot in 2013-14, data from the beginning of the year to the end of the year with our benchmark assessments. And you notice that the number of students or percentage of students at or above grade level is a little bit higher for students who are in the full-day program. And then looking at some longer-term data and some trends. I think we have to remember that as we look at this is really just one data point. We're looking at a little bit longer term. Students who were enrolled in kindergarten in 2009 and 10 and half and full day programs and how they did on the MCAS in grade 4. Remember, there's many, many data points that contribute to how children do on these assessments. This is just one data point we're looking at, but you can see that the students who, the percentage of students who are proficient in advanced is a little bit higher for the students who are in full day programs when they started their education. So there's at least a little bit of something to that. So I think that's pretty much it in terms of just a snapshot of that curriculum and academic performance overview. I think that's helpful to you. I'm really, really passionate about getting our children in full-day programs so they have a chance with our phenomenal teachers to learn and grow from a social emotional aspect, but also in the curriculum that I presented. So the most important people to talk to you today are the kindergarten teachers. So I'd like to invite them up because they're really the experts in why children should have full-day kindergarten. So come on up, teachers.
Guess I'm the senior statesman, so I got to go first. We are so excited to see so many people here, and our first thing is that we'd really like to thank and commend Dr. Reich and Dr. Smith for moving this forward because it's something that we're very excited about. From an equity perspective more than anything else, I saw the look of fear, and I'm glad Dr. Smith mentioned it, because we had that same fear when we were told to decompose numbers and that there had to be rigor, and it was, but trust me, you know, our job is the best job in the world because it's our job to make sure that children learn that learning can be fun and are excited about learning. But I think over the years we've seen the trend to see that children need to be in school more because of the demands. I taught first grade for many years, half-day kindergarten and full-day kindergarten. And the only thing I noticed was the stamina in first grade, but that was years ago, and the standards have increased. So when we met the other day, just listening to my colleagues about the time that we need and the time that we miss of play and social emotional growth and conflict resolution, they don't learn it in kindergarten. It's going to be a problem later on. So we're very excited about it, and the rest of my colleagues have a few things to say.
I just have to say, you'll like this part. You saw the decompose up there. I had one of my students say to me, decompose the numbers, Mrs. Gamble? That's what my father does with the garbage and the leaves out there. So we were able to teach the children that there were two meanings to the word decompose. One of the things that I really liked that was up on one of the slides is it showed you the dark blue and the 120 minutes of the core curriculum. But in the full-day program, I think everybody, and I, like Florence, I'm one of the senior teachers, and I've taught first grade, half-day kindergarten, and full-day kindergarten. So it's nice to have that that whole outlook to see what's going on. Having taught first grade, it's nice to know where you wanted them to come in. And so teaching kindergarten, you can say, well, I'd love to see them go this far. And like Florence, Miss Martin, the standards have changed. But as I was saying about the core standards, what is so wonderful about the all-day kindergarten is that there's that other time, well, once you've taught it, then there's that time that you have for the application of what you have taught. And it's so important for the children because we know that, you can see it and that's wonderful, but it's when you do it, you grasp it, and you have that kinesthetic hold on it. We all use our visual, our kinesthetic, and our auditory skills. And when the children can work on that, all-day kindergarten, we have that time. So everything points to it being nothing but beneficial for the children.
Hello, my name is Jennifer Glatt. I'm a full-day K teacher at the Doll Bear. I started at Doll Bear in the half-day K program, and I tip my hat to the half-day teachers up here. That 5% is because of the hard work that they've put in with their students. I'm going to be honest, I don't think I could do it. When I taught half-day, we didn't have the Common Core. We didn't have this rigorous curriculum. I have a hard enough time fitting it in 6 hours, never mind the 2.5. So congratulations to you guys. And we have quite a few half-day teachers up here. One of the things that we haven't really mentioned is there are so many assessments in kindergarten, and I know the half-day teacher that I work with, she struggles to fit in the assessments. I mean, we assess them. It's important because it informs our instruction, but it takes away from that time on learning. I have the luxury of taking them out into the hallway, and you can imagine 5 and 6-year-olds, you can't give them a paper and pencil test and they can take it in 10 minutes. Everything is done, one-on-one, and it takes time. So we do our best, and she definitely does her best, but that plays an important piece. Knowing that we were coming here tonight, I spoke to a few of my first grade colleagues, and I said, have you noticed a difference? They've always told me that the difference between half day and full day in September, they could immediately tell the difference. Like Florence said, the stamina, this almost like a maturity piece. the full day kids are used to coming to school. They're, not sleepy at 1 o'clock like our kids are now. And just the whole maturity piece. But she would say by January, February, they would all even out, both, socially, academically. Now, because of the rigorous Common Core, she said, they were telling me that it seems like it's even later now. Because, it's a lot. There's some, the examples that you saw, there's ones that are even worse. The research projects and studying authors, it's a lot for these little guys. So I think that's an important piece. I think that's all I wanted to say.
I'm Susan Stavatelli, and I represent the half-day kindergarten. And it's just a few of us in town, 3 of us. And I made a vow for my parents last year, and I see a couple, and my parents this year, that our half-day students will not miss out in the academics, and that our students will be right where the full day should be. But I did tell them the downside is not having that social or the transition time or that downtime. And I feel like our students in the half day is going from one structure to the next just to make sure we complete all that they need to by the end of the year. And at this level, it's so important to have more of that social and that time. Just to reiterate what Dr. Smith has said, it's absolutely critical and crucial to have that downtime or transition time. So thank you very much.
I really want to thank you. I want to thank our kindergarten teachers because I think they can articulate a whole lot better than I could ever, or any of the rest of us. But I do want, when I had done this presentation last week, and I brought it to the kindergarten teachers, and they told me, you got it all wrong. You're starting with the academics and the data, but it's not that. It's really about, first, it's about social emotional support for student development, and it's about equity. And the conversation was a pretty powerful one with 8 very passionate kindergarten teachers who really represent, I think, where kids are better than even, than I can, because I entered it, this is really about academics. This is about, and yes, there are shifts, and ultimately we have a responsibility to make sure that we have strong learning outcomes for students, but there's a lot to be said for the social emotional development, especially at a young age, and it used to be, I know a lot of you, I saw the faces, I watched the body language, and I'm a little stressed out too. I got to get my daughter. I'm already working in the house. But so I watched it all, and I feel the stress too. But ultimately, we really do believe in Wakefield that play is important, and purposeful play is really important at early ages. That's one of the reasons why we opened an early childhood center, because we want kids in our school system earlier, but having targeted opportunities for kids to play in meaningful, purposeful ways is important. There's no way you can do that in a half-day program. There's too much to pack in. Kids need time to be able to apply what they learn, to have their centers, to be in the supermarket and take down the shopping list, to be able to take orders in a restaurant. Okay, those things unfortunately have disappeared in a lot of curriculum, and it's certainly the time that we have, an already short school day, to do that. With the new standards that came in 2011, make it near impossible to do what we believe, and I hope a lot of you would agree, is important for developing well-adjusted boys and girls as they move through the grade levels. So with that, I do want to invite our business manager to come up to talk about the financial implications of this. Mr. Pifferling? Yeah, here you go. Save the applause for later.
Thank you, Dr. Hill. So, I don't think it's a shock that the information we've heard so far, the benefits of the program, we always need to look at what those benefits are going to cost. So we've been working diligently for several months. I mean, the planning's gone on for a couple of years, but for several months on what it's going to cost financially to put this plan into action. So I'd like to share some of that with you. what we did when we were looking at these things is we looked at some of the key indicators that we needed to look at to make sure we understood where everything was coming from. So we're anticipating that kindergarten enrollment will increase by at least 25 students. So currently we have 198. We predict that that number will probably go to somewhere around 223, 225 with the full day program. We made the assumption that our salaries are already kind of indicated for us. They're contractual obligations. We don't have any wiggle room with salaries. So that was an assumption we made within the planning process. We met with the state to talk about Chapter 70. Chapter 70 is the funding that comes back to the town of Wakefield from our tax revenue from the state, and they informed us of how much they anticipated going to a full day program would generate towards our costs. We looked at the money we're going to lose from not charging tuition, and we used the current year's figures, 2014, 2015, as that basis. The waivers don't tip too far, the IEPs don't tip too far, and our enrollment stayed pretty steady for the last few years. So we feel we're using a pretty solid number there. We have recently been awarded a transition grant, and that was just today that came in. That's great news. What that grant is, it's a one-year grant. So it doesn't go into our long-term planning, but it does help us get over that first year hump a little bit with some of the planning, some of the things that we need in year one that we can't count on for future years. And then, one of the things we look at is the impact on the town's budget. The benefits that go with hiring an employee aren't necessarily borne by the school, it's borne by the town. So we need to take that into consideration and be cautious of that also. The thing that we kind of put into place last year was we have the space to do this by opening the Doyle. We moved a couple of classrooms out of this school, and it opened up additional classroom space for us. We're currently running 13 half-day programs, 14 programs, but 13 classrooms in our full day and half day. We actually anticipate with full day it would be 12 classrooms, so we actually may even have an extra space to open up something else. So that's great news. So we have our one-time expenses. This is where that grant's going to help us offset some of this cost. Our one-time expenses are $20,000. That's the transition expenses. That's the transition grant that we were awarded for. So we anticipate that to be about $20,000. Now that we know that we got the grant, that can actually help us a little bit more with the transition piece. These are the ongoing expenses. These are the expenses we're going to have every year once we open up this program. Right now we're planning that we're going to have to add one additional teacher. One half teacher. We already have 11 and a half. We have to go to 12 teachers. We'd have to add 3 specialists, but they're only 1/3 time specialists. So and the specialists are on music, art, and physical education. So in order to, again, as you saw the charts earlier, adding that extra time that the half-day programs aren't getting now, we'd have to increase by about 1 full specialist, but 1/3 music, 1/3 art, and 1/3 physical education. In our full-day programs, we also, it's a transition year, it's a new year for everybody, for these children. We don't just put them in there with a teacher. There's always an instructional support person. So we would need to add 1 additional instructional support person. And a savings that we've identified is that we do run a midday bus run for the half-day program right now. There's not a lot of kids who take it, but there is a midday bus run that leaves the school when the morning program ends, or brings the kids in for the afternoon program only. So we can eliminate that cost from our budget. So the total ongoing expenses would be $96,000. So here's the revenue piece. As you saw from the slide earlier, there was $543,000 that we plan on bringing in this year in revenue from our tuition. The state has informed us that we would probably see an increase of $30,000 in our Chapter 70 by going to the full-day kindergarten program. Tuition-free full-day kindergarten program. That, however, doesn't go into effect until FY17. So that's an additional year out. It's actually, they take this year's numbers to base next year's Chapter 70 funding on those numbers. So we'd actually lose about $513,000 between the two. That's the ongoing piece. Year one would actually be $543,000. The future years would be about $513,000. So here's kind of the full summary. One-time expense of $20,000. We might actually be able to wipe that out with a grant, so that'd be good. Ongoing expense of $96,000. Revenue losses of $543,000. The net cost would be $660. Now, with that grant, it'd actually be closer to $640. But like I said, we just found out about that grant today. So probably between $640,000 and $650,000 would be our cost to open up a free full-day kindergarten for all program. Again, that Chapter 70 doesn't get realized until FY17. I think that's it for me. Dr.
So I'm always learning this time that there's a lot of rumors always floating around. And one of the rumors I've heard is that we are not proposing putting paraprofessionals into the kindergarten. That crossed my desk the other day. I tried not to read the Wakefield Moms site too often today. But what I did, but we of course plan to put a paraprofessional in each one of the classes. The maximum number of students that can be in a kindergarten class is 22. If there's 15 or more students, there's always a paraprofessional. We hope not to be 22. Most of the time, there are about 20 students. We do anticipate, as Mr. Tripoli said, that if we do open full day free tuition kindergarten, that we'll have students that have typically gone to private placements who will come to us. We typically have a difference of 25 to 50 students from kindergarten to first grade every year because students come back to us for first grade because their parents have them. They know they have to pay anyway, so they end up staying in the program that they were in that may offer kindergarten program. So anyway, we initially thought that there would be more state funding that would come from the increasing everybody's enrollment from. We get a credit for half a student because we provide that. We don't get credit for a full day student when the parents pay. But unfortunately, the formula, which I can't lie to you and tell you I understand the funding formula, but is not as friendly to Wakefield as I thought. And so we are not entering in this conversation that we're going to recoup a tremendous amount of funds. So while we think $30,000 really isn't a lot of extra state funding, so this is a burden that the town would need to assist us with. And the good news is I'm going to skip the bullet number 5. I've already had a number of conversations with Mr. Mayo. He's been incredibly supportive in the town government about creative ways that we can try to fund this. I'm not suggesting that this, again, is a done deal, but we are looking and we're in active conversations, and we have been for quite a while, about this being a priority for the schools. We have a lot of different things we'd like to do, and there's never enough money to do everything. But this has been an articulated priority on the part of the school committee and on the part of many of our educators. And last year when I started and I was on these listening tours, I had a lot of people tell me, we can't believe that this town doesn't offer free kindergarten for all students. So the next steps is tonight we're going to break you off for those of you that can stay, and I anticipate a lot of questions. And I will post FAQs to our website along with this presentation, and we have this presentation video tonight, so you can share it amongst your friends and peers out there in the public. But any questions we get, we'll do our very best to answer them. I'm sure a lot of our staff can answer them, but the ones we can't, we'll make sure we get, or the ones we hear most often, we'll get that out to all of you. We will continue to communicate with you as often as possible. The best way to get information about this is, if you're attached to schools, is through the schools, but is to look at the superintendent's blog, our Facebook site, and on our website. Especially if you don't have kids in the school. Please keep checking that. We will try to communicate. We try to get I think we did a pretty good job getting the word out about tonight. Maybe I'll use Wakefield Moms as well to help me get out that information. But we need your advocacy. And one of the reasons I know a lot of people said, I heard that a lot of people said, I don't know if I need to show up tonight, that I want it, so why do I need to be here? And certainly there may be people in the audience that don't want this, and we want to hear from you as well. Who have concerns, please share that in the breakout groups. But if this is something you really want to support, we need your advocacy. We need your support. And there's ways that our school committee meets twice a month, the second Tuesday of every month. Come to the public portion of it is always the first 15 minutes. You don't need to stay for the long meeting. You can come and you can just share your advocacy. Discussing it at PTO meetings, getting it out there in the public, talking to your representatives, Board of Selectmen, all of that goes a long way in creating this energy. While many of the people in the room, this impacts, there's many people in the town that this doesn't directly impact. And there are people who I know feel, well, my kids already went through the system, right, and they've done just fine. Right? And my argument to them is a lot has changed in just the last 2 years. Okay? And it looks very different. And I can speak as a father now, an educator. For my child, I wouldn't choose any other, I would never choose, I would choose full-day kindergarten. And it's a shame that I'm going to have to pay full-day kindergarten because I think my child deserves to have free full-day kindergarten. So that's just my little editorial as a parent. And then we have regular budget subcommittee meetings, and we're about to launch into the budget for next year. FY16 begins really next week. We start meeting with our principals, and the school committee, the small subcommittee from the school committee, begins meeting to plan the budget. There will be public forums about the budget, which will get out there in the months of February and March. And if this is something, again, that you support, I encourage you to come to those public forums. See what my clicker is here. Oh, thank you. Thank you. Before we get that, so we have a budget schedule. The first presentation of the budget from the school committee is at the end of February. Then there's a public budget session in mid-March. Okay, and then the school committee will vote on the final budget at the end of March. So some of you are wondering, how will we know if this is going to happen? A very significant period of time is that February and March period when it goes to the school committee. If it gets to the school committee and there's discussion and it moves forward, that is a strong indication that this is something that we are actively and aggressively pursuing as a school district. So those conversations in February and in March, each one of those meetings will have opportunity for public comment. One of the meetings in mid-March is a public forum on the budget. Okay, so I really would encourage you to come out and voice, well, either your support or your concern, because we need to hear from families. So those are our next steps. The other place where you can give us feedback is on your agendas. There is a site on the bottom. You can actually text to us. We're trying to get fancy with technology here. You can text us, or you can log on to your computer or device and give us feedback at that URL or that text below. So if you wake up in the middle of the night and have an idea, feel free to text us. Okay, we'll be able to read through some of your comments that you share. Okay. The two questions we're going to ask, very simple, these are not fancy questions. What resonated with you about the presentation and the plan tonight? And then what questions and or concerns do you have? And in each group, on the top of your agenda, there's a room number, and we can help direct you to all the 100, this is pretty easy, are on the first floor going straight out this door. If you have a 200, you're going up to the second floor, and I think it's the first room in that corridor. And we really want your feedback around these two questions. I do want to put in one more plug. You all got flyers for Parent University. Okay, this will be our second annual event. We had about 100 people there last year. We hope to get closer to 200 this year. Please save the date on your calendars. We will provide babysitting services for families, and we'd like to get as many. You don't have to have kids in the system. You can invite families from other communities as well. This is open to the public, and there's going to be all kinds of topics that I'm having the PTOs help me design. Topics of interest, so that it can meet your needs, whether you have a 5-year-old, 2-year-old, or you have a senior in high school. Okay, so thank you all for coming tonight. We'll probably be in those rooms for about 25 minutes to half an hour, and certainly you can meet. I'm not going to keep you hostage in the school all night long. Thank you very much. I'll stay behind if people have questions.